Welcome to Writer Wednesday. Oh, it's been a while since I did a Writer Wednesday. And if you see right here, this is, well, it could be called a storyboard, or it could be called a crime wall. It could be called any number of things. And the reason that I did this is that I wanted to get back into the big part of my story. And I don't know about you, but I've seen a lot of crime movies. I watch Supernatural. I've seen a lot of movies for writers that are well, not movies for writers, movies about writers. And usually when let's say when we're writing our story or when we're editing our story, we have to keep track of a lot of different things. We have to keep track of our plot, our characters, who does what secrets there are, names, eye color, hair color, all those things that a lot of times actually go into a story Bible. Like your character's appearance, like I said, eye color, hair color, their background, anything that's actually relevant to that. And in order to sort of put your story together, especially if you're going to have more than one story, like if you're going to have a duology or a trilogy or anything like that, a series, you have to kind of keep up with all that. And it can get quite complicated, and it can actually get quite complicated when you're just writing the first story, because you're dealing with a lot of characters, you're dealing with a lot of plots. Sometimes the plots are running parallel. Sometimes there are those moments that you really need to keep track of, or maybe you're not quite sure where they go, and sometimes having a visual aid to do that helps. Now, some people keep that in a notebook. Some people keep that in things like Evernote or OneNote or things like that. But there are a lot of different ways to do that. I've done vision boards before, but this is a new way for me to do that. This is sort of, well, it's a poster board. And I've taken facts, notes, maps, quotes, pictures. I've got little ideas with sticky notes. I've got all kinds of things. I'm not done with it. I'm calling it my novel wall, because it's going to end up all over the place, I think. If you've watched the show Supernatural or Castle, you've seen Castle where he has like a crime wall, or if you've watched any of those kind of forensic shows, you'll see that on a big whiteboard or whatever, and it gives you an idea. And I haven't put the yarn on there yet to connect the dots, so to speak, but I will. I don't have actual character sketches technically on there yet, but I will. I don't have a newspaper story or like a newspaper clipping, but I'm going to find one, or I will write one myself. I have Post-its. I haven't done the timeline yet, but I do have a Post-it note that has when with a couple of ideas. I may end up doing the timeline on a separate poster board. I've got to build the magic system. I've got to build a few other things. I've got to build something for the antagonist, the society. They're hunters, but I'm hesitant to use that word because there are quite a lot of books that have that phrase, hunters, in them. So this was my bullet journal for NaNoWriMo for back in November. And I've written 2019 because I'm going to put it back in my writer's Bible, because I'm going to be continuing on. I've got some other notebooks. I've got this little printout that I have where it has plotting comparisons. So for the hero's journey, Save the Cat, 7-point, and then what's called Try Fail. And I'm going to do some more stuff with that. I've been working on Save the Cat Writes a Novel. And then I have my composition notebook, where this is just the brainstorming stuff, where I'm taking notes and I'm highlighting, but I'm taking notes in here and I'm doing some of the exercises in my composition book. And then I have the notebook, the actual notebook. I will find it. It has my Snoopy cover on it with Snoopy writing, and it is my notes for my novel, where I handwrite my novel. So I have another one of these in my writer's Bible, and then I have an actual little notebook where I keep up with some other things. So I'm trying to get everything together because next month in March is when I actually start doing the hardcore planning for Camp. And I've changed characters' names, and I've done quite a few other things, and I'm going through this right now. I'm using Save the Cat Writes a Novel for plot, and then I'm going to be using the hero's journey for character arc and for the rest of my outlining along with tarot. Now I will do the video with the hero's journey on here, basic hero's journey stuff, and then I will also do the tarot and writing on the other YouTube channel that I have. The link is below, but I haven't done that yet. I'm still working on basic plot right now because I realized that my novel, I'd outlined it, it had a few issues with plot. Not very many issues necessarily with the main character arc, except that I've been through that like a few times now, changing things up. My original idea was really good. I revamped it a little bit, made it a little bit better. And now I think after really delving into things and really get into the hero's journey, I've been reading the book. I've got most of my writer books right here. I've got some story cubes. I'm going to do a lot of different things, some creative ways to help generate ideas and things. So I am sort of back to some of the beginning. And I wanted to talk a little bit about what it takes to work on a novel. But I think doing brainstorming and creating an outline, at least for me, a basic outline, that's the brainstorming and the outlining gives me the bones of the story. It's the framework the outline is. So it's a map of your story. And then that first draft is actually where, to me, you get the guts of your story. You pour that onto the page. You're burying your soul into the story, the bare bones of your novel. You're building the foundation. And the outline is the framework. I'm trying to get back into the bare bones of my story. And I have been improving the outline, the map of my story. And doing this sort of a story wall gives me a chance to really take a hardcore look at some of the important things. I have a sticky note that looks like poo-poo, and it is the shitstorm. And I wrote the shitstorm. Where exactly does this hit? I have prologue and I have some pictures of really good backstory stuff. I have a date of when I have the month. I have October, which is when one of the big things happens in the very beginning. I have a little clock on there because things happen right at midnight. I have stages. So you see stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4, stage 5, stage 6, stage 7, and stage 8. Now I have that because I have a prologue. Normally, I guess if you were actually to do it in the 7 plot point thing, there's all different kinds of things, but for me, I try to keep with the basic 7 stages of that, but I decided to do it a little bit differently this time because I actually have a prologue, and I know prologues can be kind of, some people think they're taboo, but I love my prologue. My prologue is really good hook. So the 7 point is the hook. Turn 1, pinch 1, midpoint, pinch 2, turn 2, resolution. Well, I have combined the hero's journey and the 3-act structure, basic 3-act structure over here. A lot of 3-act structure is actually Save the Cat. So I've been going through and I'm going to be working on the combination of them. A Scrivener template from Jamie Gold that is called the Master Beat Sheet, where it combines the Marshall thing and Save the Cat. They have the 7 points. So introduction is the inciting incident, where you introduce the protagonist and you hook the reader. You set up the story, the conflict, foreshadowing, establishing stakes, what event launches the characters toward their first dilemma. And you want to include, it says, the opening image to set the tone, the mood, the scope. It's a before snapshot. You want to state the theme, which is generally in the first few scenes, such as around the 3,868 word count. The hook moment to create a question the reader wants an answer to. And the catalyst of a life-changing moment knocking down the house of cards. For example, if you were looking at Save the Cat in the hero's journey, sort of a meet in the middle, combining the two, the hero's journey saves the cat. The hero saves the cat. It's the opening image is where you meet your hero. It is the hello to the ordinary world. And then you keep going in steps to where you you know, we're going to have an inciting incident, and the ordinary world is sort of the calm before the storm. It highlights what you need to know about your character before your character changes. Because right now, your character is, like in Harry Potter, Harry is very passive. He's been raised in the Muggles world by people who are neglectful of him. They don't want him there. Anyway, once he's introduced into the magical world, he's still very humble. He has no clue what he's doing. He's really nice to others. He appreciates all these things, these little things that the kids who have been raised in the magical world don't. Whereas Hermione knows about the magical world, and she's got way more knowledge than Harry. Her parents are Muggles. So her and Harry kind of click because Harry doesn't know anything, and he was raised in the Muggle world, but both his parents were magical. So he has to learn. So you've got this magical world and this ordinary world. You find out about your hero's flaws. What does your hero really need? Their goals, their motivations, the conflict are going to keep happening because your character needs to go through changes. Conflict is a big thing. You also need to know your character's motivations, which are subject to change. So then you get the call. Some people call it the call to adventure. Some people call it the catalyst. Some people call it the inciting incident. And then you have the refusal of the call or the debate. There's all different names for all of these things. But it's what the book is really going to be about. That inciting incident, the call, this is where you get the real introduction to what's going to be happening in the book. When it's the refusal or the debate, that's where they're trying to avoid what is essentially their destiny. They're going to, like Alice, fall down the rabbit hole. Their world is going to get turned upside down. Their ordinary world is going to get turned upside down. And it's kind of the, hey, we're not in Kansas anymore moment. And that's the crossing of the threshold. That's when you're going to enter into this, it can be called the fun and games because it's all new and exciting. But then you get the wake up moment where you realize, hey, Ed, this is a whole new world, but some shit's going down. You know, bad guys are approaching. We've got the hero has to commit, and what's going to happen is, you know, as the bad guys close in, the character's going to approach this innermost cave. They're going to figure out, this is when they're going to really super commit. And then right after they commit, then is this all is lost black moment. Shit hits the fan, the shitstorm thing. So they're going to fail. And then they're going to reformulate a plan, and they're going to get some friends in, and they're going to get back on the horse, so to speak. So you've got a lot of different things, and you can look at things however you need to plot or outline. I'm in the stage where I am combining things to work for me because I'm a pantser at heart. So you could call me a plotzer or a plantser. People are calling it different things. But what I am is a loose outliner, but I have tightened up some of the loose threads of my outline, and now it's time to actually do some more tightening. And believe it or not, I did not think that this would be so wonderful, but it really is. There's a part in here, this is where she talks about the B story. She calls it the internal story. It's a story that's intricately linked to what your hero needs to learn in order to change their life, complete their transformation, and enter the Hall of Fame story-worthiness. So the B story, or the internal story, the need is what your novel is really about. For example, and she gives some different examples. I'm going to talk about one that I am very familiar with, which is Misery by Stephen King. This isn't about a guy stuck in a crazy lady's cabin in the woods. That's really just a creepy premise. That's the A story. The book is actually about a writer who discovers how to write the best novel of his career and how that novel and writing in general can save a life. That would be the B story. How cool is that? She goes on about a few other ones. She talks about what plays out on the surface. What the hero wants is only half of the story. The true soul of a novel lies in the hero's needs, which can also be called the internal goal, the life lesson, or the spiritual lesson. And by spiritual, I'm not necessarily talking about religion, although your spiritual lesson certainly can relate to religion, as evidenced in countless popular novels like The Shack by William P. Young or The Kite Runner by Khalil Hosseini. It certainly doesn't have to. The life lesson is the inner journey that your hero didn't even know they were on that will eventually lead them to the answer they never expected. It's a life lesson. And she calls some of that, it's universal. You should be able to walk up to any Joe Schmo or Jane Schmane on the street and tell them what your hero needs to learn, and they would instantly get it, or better yet, relate to it. I really like how she's written this book. She gives these different universal lessons. For example, forgiveness of self or others. Love includes self-love, family love, romantic love. Acceptance of self or circumstances of reality. Faith in oneself and others and in the world and God. Fear, overcoming it, conquering it, finding courage. Trust in oneself and others or in the unknown. Survival, including the will to live. Selflessness, including sacrifice, altruism, heroism, and overcoming greed. Responsibility, including duty, standing up for a cause, accepting one's destiny. Redemption, including atonement, accepting blame, remorse, and salvation. So one of the universal lessons that my main character, that my hero is going to go through, would be responsibility. Standing up for a cause, accepting one's destiny, including duty. That's one of her inner, that's going to be one of her universal lessons. Another one is going to be self-love and having faith in herself and in the magical world. She's going to have to overcome fear in order to do all this. She's going to have to trust in herself and others. So a lot of these survival, she's not going to have to overcome greed, but she's definitely going to have to overcome the need for revenge. Redemption, including atonement, accepting blame, remorse, and salvation. I think overall this whole thing, when she finally accepts her destiny, and when by the end of the novel, she's going to have felt a sense of redemption, and maybe a few other things. So I changed character names. I have found my title. I think this Camp NaNoWriMo is going to be a really big deal for me. I think it's going to be the make it or break it part for me for my novel, because now I'm doing some of the hardcore work. And before I outlined, and I got outlining done in like a couple of weeks. Now I'm actually spending weeks, like over months worth of outlining to really get into the bare bones and the framework of it, so that when I start writing the foundation of my novel, like the real deal, it'll be better. And a lot of this has had to do with brainstorming. There are a number of ways that work for writing a novel, and I'm going to talk about that in a video, but for now, let's just say, first, in order to write a novel, you have to have an idea, and to come up with an idea, you need to brainstorm, mind map, whatever it is that you need to do. You can keep a notebook for all your story ideas. You can have a collections in a notebook for your story ideas. I firmly believe that if you are going to if you are writing, you're going to come up with new shiny ideas, and you're going to be tempted to go for those. Instead of taking a lot of time to actually delve into like my new shiny ideas, I write them down in my notebook, and I have a page that's specifically for the new shiny ideas, and I write those down. And sometimes I'll go into like a little paragraph once I get it out of there, so I don't forget it, because I will forget it if I don't write it down. Then I can go back to that later. I have skipped around a lot sometimes, and I don't want to do that anymore. Like I said, I feel like it's time to really I've been messing around with this novel now for quite a few years, and I want it finished. This is the year I am finishing the damn novel. This is my year to finish the damn novel. So the next thing you need to do is start thinking about your story. You got these ideas, and you can mind map your ideas into something that is more cohesive than just the brainstorming that you did. So then you take your mind map and you kind of centralize it. So you're going to think about the world. You're going to think about your characters. You're going to think about the genre. You're going to think about the changes that the characters are going to need to go through, their goals, their motivations, the conflicts the characters are going to go through, the setting and the plot. And once you kind of get all of that sort of mapped out, that's when you can start working on your outline. If you're not a pantser. If you are a pantser, you kind of figure all this out. Sometimes we write it down, sometimes we don't. If I don't write shit down, I forget it. So now you're actually going to outline, and you're going to have to find a method that works for you, because some methods work better for other people. Like I said, some people work better with, say, the Save the Cat, the beat sheet kind of thing. Some people work better with the snowflake method. Some people work better with the hero's journey. Some people work better with the 7-point plot structure. Some people work better with all different kinds of things. You have to figure out, or pantsing, loose pantsing, heavy duty pantsing, loose outlining, heavy duty outlining. You have to figure out what works for you. I tried pantsing quite a few years, and I ended up always with the saggy middle, and that told me that I needed more structure. So I started trying to hardcore outline, and that was just too much for me. I was outlining scenes and dialogue and all kinds of stuff, and that was just too much for me. So then I found a way to loose outline, and I started sort of working on that, and then I found tarot and the hero's journey, and that helped. And now with this Save the Cat Writes a Novel, I figured out that I can do my plot with it and the beat sheets, and then I can do my character arc with the hero's journey, and I can be creative with the other stuff that we will talk about on the second channel. If you're a pantser, just write down what you know about your story, and that way you don't forget. And then the next thing you're going to need to do is write. Sit down, focus on getting the words down. Whether you handwrite, whether you Scrivener or Word or Y-Writer or whatever, focus on getting the words down. And then you can get to editing later on, because some people, they edit along the way. Some people write a chapter and then edit. Some people go back at the end of the novel and then edit. Really, whatever works for you. But sometimes you can figure out ways that help you. I've found that if I go back in and edit, I end up with that perfectionism thing. So it's better for me if I just write, get it all down, and then I can print it out and start working on the editing. One of the other things you need to keep in mind is motivation. Because if you don't stay motivated, if you don't remind yourself of why you're writing your novel, when you get to like one of those days where you don't feel like writing, or one of those weeks where you're having issues with your story, your characters don't want to behave, things like that, you have your, if you are an outliner, you have your outline. You can have your storyboard. Some days when you feel like you are having that stuck moment, or you're having a bit of writer's block, depending on how you look at it, you can kind of look at your storyboard, your story wall, your outline, your vision board, whatever works for you. Evernote or OneNote, you can look in there. You can look at your Pinterest board, and that will actually help. But I try to remind myself of why I'm doing this, and I think I have this story to tell. I really want to tell the story. The story's been yelling at me to get it done, to tell it, and so that's what I'm doing. Like I said, what works for one may not work for all. I've been getting my bag together. For those of you, this is at the end. For those of you, I am trying to get all of this together so that I can show you my travel bag for Friday, and we're going to do a little bit, hopefully, of plein air sketching, maybe. I'm going to be picking up Victor, so I'm going to try to do some plein air sketching tomorrow, which is Thursday. I'm going to get this filmed and do a little bit of plein air sketching. If not, and I end up having to take my mom to the doctor on Monday, I will take my sketchbook and my little travel bag, which will be, and my travel bag. I have a smaller bag, but I'm hoping to get everything into here. So I have this, and I have this, but I had to wash this, so it's wet right now. I'm letting it dry. I didn't want to dry it in the dryer because I got watercolor all over it. I got watercolor on it. Watercolor, some of it's not coming out. Some of it came out. This was handmade. One of my friends, she asked her mother made this for me. So this, which will roll up, can go in here along with this, and I pretty much have everything I need in there. So I'm just kind of waiting for this to dry so that I can redo this bag. I have redone my pen case, and this is the art case, and we're going to work on it, and then I'm hoping to fit everything in this one bag. I will leave a link when I do the video about this, where this came from. I can't tell you where this came from because it was handmade and sent to me. And then this I got from Jet Pens. I will see y'all again soon. Thanks for watching, y'all. Have a good one. Bye.